Comic Book Savant, Real to Real, Movie Talk. Welcome back to the Comic Book Savant podcast. I'm your host, James Harris. This episode is going to be a Real to Real movie talk episode. This episode, I'm going to be doing a re-review or a retro review of the first DC animated film release in the current series of films that they've been doing. This started back in 2007. Now we tend to get these releases 3 up to 4 times a year now. It has really become a staple for them, but this is the one that started it all. I have to thank you guys for recommending me going back, reviewing some of these older films. I normally review the newer ones as soon as they come out. I love these direct to home releases that they've done. I think I own all of them as of now, even the ones I don't like, just as kind of a historic thing because it's an unprecedented time. You know, like I said, it started back in 2007, and I can't even remember the exact number of releases. I think it's like in the 40s. They're have 40 approaching 50 releases over this time span of what is this 2007, 11 or so years. So they started around the same time as the MCU. Funny thing is that around the same time when they started this initiative in 2007, Marvel was doing a similar thing, but they petered out after about 4 years. Once the MCU really stuck and got going on live action, they were doing a competitive thing. They drop a random kind of animated film here and there, but they were consistently putting out about 2, because I think when they both started, they did about 2 a year. And over time, Warner Animation kept ramping up their production, and you would think this would be something Marvel would get back into because they're owned by Disney and Pixar, that they could do or would do these, but they don't. So I kind of miss out having alternated points of view from both of the big two in animated form, but I digress. This episode we're focusing on Superman Doomsday, again released in 2007. Excuse me. Directed by Lauren Montgomery, Bruce Timm, and Brandon Vietti. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And it was written by Bruce Timm and Dwayne Caprese. The breakdown for the film is as follows. When LexCorp accidentally unleashes a murderous creature, Doomsday, Superman meets his greatest challenge as a champion, and this is based on the Death of Superman storyline that appeared in DC Comics publications in the 1990s. Again, what I digressed from when I went on my tangent was, I thank you guys for suggesting me doing these kind of retro reviews and going back through, starting from the beginning and reviewing the different films, because I got so stuck on doing the more current films. We're closely approaching 500 episodes. Not everyone has been with the show from the very beginning, so a lot of those reviews are buried so far away, because again they've been 11, 12 years ago. Sometimes I forget that, so it's kind of cool now to go back and revisit them, and I've been doing that over the past few years with comics, re-reviewing comics that I did early on, or stories that I felt very passionate about at the time, to see if they held up, and I enjoy doing it. But this is the first time I've really ever did it with movies on this scale. So I'm doing the retro live action movie reviews, which those are coming. I'm still working through the Christopher Reeve Superman movies. I think the last one I did was on Superman 2, the Donner cut. I went back and I did find the Superman 2 theatrical cut that I will be recording soon, so that those are coming back as well, as a side note. So again, this is something kind of cool that was suggested from you guys. So again, your voice counts when you reach out to me and tell me it's something that you guys want to hear from me. If it's reasonable and it's something I can do, I will. It might take a little bit for me to do it because this was suggested 6, 7, 8 months ago, but finally getting around to it now. But I will get to it. I will add it on my list of things to do that I will work on to make happen. So more of these will be coming. Now, going back to the cast on this film, um, we have Adam Baldwin as Superman and Clark Kent. We have Anne Heche as Lois Lane. James Marsters as Lex Luthor. Cree Summers as Mercy Graves. Ray Wise as Perry White. Swoozie Kurtz as Martha Kent. Adam Wiley as Jimmy Olsen. John DiMaggio as Toyman, and Tom Kenny as the robot. Off the bat, just hearing that voice cast puts me in a certain state of mind, and was one of my biggest issues with the movie. Now, I love Andrea Romano. I've talked about her. If you've heard any of my previous DC animated universe reviews, she's one of the best voice directors in the business. Any cartoon from your childhood, if you're around my age, that you ever grew up on, she was the voice director. She's a talent that is unmatched in the business. I want to say, and this is just my opinion, that going back watching this movie, something really washed over me is that Warner Brothers Animation was trying to do something different. They didn't just want to go do what they had already done at that time, because they were coming off of, Justice League Unlimited, even Superman the animated series, Batman Beyond. All those shows had their run and did them in that Bruce Timm style. They were heading this up, trying to do something I felt like a little bit different, edgier, to have a more theatric feel to it. And I feel like it was more so mandated, because I feel like this casting was so uneven. Like, for your three main roles, James Marsters, I had to look it up because I'm not familiar with the name. He's a great character actor that always plays like a bad guy and a villain and stuff. But his take on the character of Lex Luthor was just weird. It just didn't work. And Heche, I loved her as an actress over the years. She just seemed tone deaf as Lois Lane. She picked up steam and leveled out by the end of the film as Adam Baldwin as Superman and Clark Kent. But in the very beginning, it seemed like he was doing an impression of what he thought Clark Kent and Superman should sound like. But again, either they did some after they did their initial script readings in the beginning, I feel like they came back and punched it up later, because they seemed more comfortable, both Heche and Baldwin, as the movie, like I said, as you progress through the movie, it picked up and it normaled out, and it seemed like less of an impression, and they recited the lines. But I felt like either one of them never tried to make the character their own. They just did impressions of what they've seen in movies previously on what they thought the character should be, instead of doing their personalized take on the character. That's what it felt like to me. But then Romano did a great job with the rest of the cast, with the supporting characters, but they had so little screen time. So much of the focus is on those three characters. And what Marsters did with Lex Luthor, I feel like, in hindsight, because we can look at this now in a bubble. This was all the way back in 2007. It was their first film, adaptation in animated form. And they recently, back in 2018 and 2019, they redid this whole story. They condensed it down in this one movie, but they broke it up into two movies and then re-released it as one whole movie, where they did The Death of Superman and then The Reign of the Superman films in 2018 and 2019 respectively. I feel like what take they wanted from Luthor in this film that they missed very badly on. Rainn Wilson did a great job. He took the tone that I felt like they were shooting for in this film, replicated it in that film, made it his own, and tweaked it over the films, and really reined it in to give it a dark feel. But what Marsters did a really demented, mentally deranged take on Luthor, and it was just very dark, and it felt over the top and just off kilter. Um, yeah, and he was just, and you have to play Luthor with a hint of that, but then make him somewhat likable. And this character is deplorable. You do not like him. He's a deviant, in the strongest sense of the word. And he just felt like a sleazeball. And Lex can feel like an arrogant prick, but not a sleazeball. It's a thin line when it comes to villains and making them work, and it just missed here. Um, when it comes to the animation in this film, the animation style was very off-putting, especially in the beginning. And I've made this comment numerous times. If you've heard my previous animated reviews, they've gotten way better in it more recently. But it's a thing whenever you watch one of these DC animated films, the artwork in the beginning half or at different spots of the film gets very spotty and substandard. And then as the film goes along, it normals out, and it works. But it's like the very opening parts of the movie, like maybe the first 10 or 15 minutes, is just very substandard artwork, especially by their standards. And not everyone is a fan of the different their main style they use for the bulk of their movies. And this was, and then they would try to match animation to meet the artists that worked on the original story. They try to match it. So they've done both styles, and then they have kind of a house style. This animation was still coming off. You could tell it was not that far off from the Timverse shows that I mentioned earlier, because it was partly that, but then partly going for a little bit more of an adult style to it. And it was this weird hybrid that didn't work, and it bothered me more in the beginning of the movie and less as it went on. But the animation smoothed out and was way smoother and more consistent. So I got through it. It wasn't like, the worst thing ever, but it's very off-putting at the very beginning. And I haven't really watched this movie in years, in at least a decade. So it was definitely, all very off-putting in the beginning. One scene in particular, it really was glaring how bad the animation was in the beginning part of the movie. In the funeral scene, there were so many characters, because they were showing the mass of people that they were showing in the background that literally had heads, hair, and blank faces. I was like, I didn't know the question was in this. I didn't know it was a bunch of questions in the crowd. You'll get that joke if you know who the question is. Anyway, but it was very just like, wow, like for this to be released in a scale that it was, I was like, that's unacceptable, but neither here nor there. It happens. Again, just about the voice cast, it just did not work across the board, in my opinion. Like I said, you had the three main characters, the casting was just totally off. Everybody else that I mentioned, Cree Summers is like the bomb voice actress. I knew Cree Summers from a different world, the Cosby spinoff with Lisa Bonet, when she goes off to college. I knew Cree Summers from that character on that show. She is like the best voice actress in the business. Video games, so many TV shows. She has such a range. I applaud her. She is the bomb. A lot of shows, animated shows that I've reviewed, like Voltron, like if it's a big animated show, no matter where it is, or movie, most of the time, if you look at the credits, you'll see Cree Summers' name. If you IMDb her credits are endless, and they keep growing. I think she was, misused in this, because Mercy, I'm not trying to spoil the movie, but dang, that's all I can say is dang. But anyway. But like I said, the voice casting was uneven, but I felt like it was one of the biggest weaknesses in this film. And I felt like the writing let this film down as well. It definitely seemed like a very poor adaptation, that they definitely felt a certain kind of way, considering 11, 12 years later, they redid this whole thing. And it's very hard to find this. Now, if you want to watch this, if you have HBO Max, you can find it. And then I found it on iTunes for like $10. as well. I don't know as far as finding physical copies if you can, but at least you can stream it if you have HBO Max, or if you want to buy it, you can pick it up for relatively a reasonable amount. They kind of swept this under the rug in favor of the other two movies, which are a very good adaptation. So if you haven't seen The Death of Superman and the Reign of the Superman films, definitely check them out. I've reviewed them within the past couple of years because, like I said, it came out in 2018, 2019. So I did review those as those came out. So they should be on the channel for you to check out. I definitely thought they were shooting for a more cinematic feel with these releases, which you could tell by the score of the film. Definitely had a more grandiose feel to it, but it just came off in certain shots that were set up in the film and the certain effects around the certain shots, especially towards the end of the movie. They really did it up. But it just seemed like with the writing and the dips in the animation being inconsistent throughout, it just wasn't up to par to what their vision was, to what the actual execution of that vision. So it just was a total miss on that way. Luckily for us, they did improve each time out. They still had mishaps and missteps along the way, but it seems like they've done quite well over those years with these animated releases. But is this being the starting point? It wasn't the best step foot forward, but they did improve and they kept going. And now I feel like with their last quite few releases, they've really been knocking it out the park. And really right now, because it was on shaky ground, I thought they might do what Marvel didn't pull out of doing these animated releases, but they kept going at it and kept putting them out, kept putting like 2, 3 out. And like I said, I think now they're up to, they do one a quarter, like one, every quarter. So we get about 4 now, and they've really found their groove. And I'm happy because I like these direct to home film releases. I look forward to them. Like I said, not all of them are my favorite. I don't detest them all. I have a few that are not my favorite, but I will at least always watch them and support them because I want them to keep making them for sure. And I wish deep down that Marvel would get back into it because I love the competition. And, a lot of their directors and stuff that they use now did work on those handful of Marvel direct to home video releases that they did. Like Sam Liu, which is one of their main directors that they use, worked on a ton of the Marvel ones before he's become a mainstay over in the for Warner Brothers Animation. He primarily does the directs the Batman centric films that come out. He's kind of like the lead guy for the Batman because Warner Animation has their Justice League primarily, Batman and Superman. They've experimented and done some Green Lantern stuff and some Wonder Woman stuff. I wish they will expand more. I think the next film that they're coming out with is what is it, the JSA, which I'm looking forward to because that'll be cool. So I look forward to them. Now they're doing some, they're doing more original kind of stories now, and still some adaptations. I'm looking forward to the Long Halloween adaptation they're finally doing. They promised that one since the beginning, and they're finally going to do that, I think, this year. But the next one is JSA, if I'm not mistaken. So looking forward to that. And we'll be reviewing that here on the channel. So let's break it down. Let's bring it in and break it down when it comes down to the brass tacks. So we know when I do movies, I break it down into 5 distinct categories. Acting, I give a 6 out of 10. Wasn't a fan of the acting. Casting, 6 out of 10. Not the best. Direction, I give a 4 out of 10 because it just was a horrendous adaptation of the source material. Special effects, which would for animation would be more so the animation, I give a 5 out of 10 because it was just so wildly inconsistent throughout that it was just not their best work. And the story, again, very poor adaptation of the source material. know it even more so now than I did at the time, because we've had a really great adaptation of it that was broken up into two films instead of cramming this whole storyline into one film. And it went so far off base, where the more recent adaptations stuck to the source material instead of diverging from it. So overall, I would give this a 5.25 out of 10. Is it something that you run out and buy? No, that's not a good rating. I just feel like, for me, I collect all of these, so I'm gonna, I watched it off of HBO Max, but I did later find it on iTunes. I'll pick it up because I've been going back buying them all of them, because I kind of need them if I'm going to do these retro reviews and so forth. And if I ever need to go back and revisit it, I have it. So I buy them. So I will. I don't know when the next time I'll watch it again, but it's good to kind of have them. And again, I always want to support, to know I want them to continue making these. And sometimes you have to put your money where your mouth is when it comes to that kind of stuff. So I'm a firm believer in that. I got that from my spinner rack, bro. You got to go out and support. You got to vote with your wallets, and they won't know if you really like something if you don't show it with your wallet. You got to step up and let them know you want more of this material. But that's all I have for you guys for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. We're going to be doing many more reel-to-reel episodes, movie talk wise, retro movie talk. And I got some other surprises that I'm working on another type of reel-to-reel episode that I'll be doing. But I'm not going to let you know now, but I'm working on it. Those will come few and far between, because it's a lot more work associated with what I'm going to try to do for that. But I think you guys will like it, because it'll be a little bit more long form. It'll be when I get those done. I have a couple of ideas for the first few of them, but like I said, I'm working on that in the background. Once they're ready, I'll start dropping those, but I think you'll have fun with them. As always, you can find me on the website, which is comicbooksavant.com. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Comic Book Savant, and also on Facebook, facebook.com/Comic Book Savant, all one word. But that's all I have for you guys for this episode. Thank you so much for your support, and I appreciate you guys that go over to Patreon. Even if you don't sign up like for the reoccurring membership, like if you just drop me something. I've had a few of you guys do that. I appreciate it so much from the bottom of my heart. Every little bit of support helps. And I appreciate you all so much for that. Love you guys a bunch. Stay safe out there. Until next week, you guys take care, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.